Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter, or of course you can subscribe to the channel. Let's talk boxing. We're going to discuss a very emotive subject here today, a sensitive topic, and that is coming off of the back of Kell being filmed by a friend of his taking an illegal substance. A lot of people have been highly critical of Kell. A lot of people have been downplaying it and making out like it's no big deal. I'm not going to do either of those things because while I do think this is serious for a variety of reasons, which we'll discuss, I also have sympathy towards Kell and a whole bunch of other fighters who do fall off the rails. And I want to discuss the process of why this happens in the hope that people can sort of relate it to their own lives and try and understand why this sort of thing is so common when it comes to fighters. You know, he put out a statement to say, I messed up, I hold my hands up, and I want to apologize to my family, gym, friends and fans. It's no secret that I struggle with mental health and I'm finding retirement really hard. I'm actively seeking the help I need to get me on the right path. Again, I apologize for the hurt that I've caused. And prior to this story breaking, Kell was talking to Boxing King Media, and in this interview, it's actually very poignant. He's been asked whether he's enjoying retirement, and he says, I'm a bit lost. It's a little bit like I can sort of understand that. He's essentially saying that the man that once existed, the man with those goals, the man that had a purpose in life, has now gone. And he's almost mourning the loss of himself. He's mourning the loss of not Kell the man, but the special one, the special K, Kell the fighter. And because that was so intrinsically linked with his identity, he's lost at the moment. We'll get into this a little bit more deeply in a moment. But Darren Till, the UFC fighter, he jumped to the defense of Kell and he was saying how essentially 80% of the public are doing this, he says. Now, I don't know who Darren Till's mixed in with, but I would assume it's a lot less than 80%. Nonetheless, I do appreciate what Darren Till's trying to do here. He's trying to defend a guy who's clearly low, he's down, and there were a few people that were kicking him while he was down. And I understand Darren's reasoning for trying to defend Kell but we also have to understand the dangers of using this particular substance. As you can see here, when it comes to long-term use in particular, it also includes things like movement disorders, including Parkinson's. Now, when you are a fighter who's already been taking damage to the skull and brain trauma is bound to have been involved, the last thing you need to be doing is contributing to the potential of the downfall of your own health, particularly neurologically speaking. You need to be doing your utmost to improve your health, to be able to now say, right, I'm retired, I need to rebuild the body that has been broken by the fight game, not to be contributing to a denigration of that body. So whilst I appreciate the motives of Darren Till, I don't think we can downplay this, particularly when you also think that Kell is an inspiration to an awful lot of children. There'll be a lot of kids that look up to him. They love him. He's a hero to them. You don't want these kids nationally and especially in Sheffield looking up to Kell and thinking, yeah, if my favourite fighter does that, well then there's a coolness to it, right? It doesn't matter. What's the big deal if I can do it? And kids are impressionable. And a lot of people out there might say Kell never asked to be a role model. But with great power comes great responsibility. And the fact of the matter is, he is a role model. But I also want to consider this from a sympathetic perspective. You know, the way human beings learn about life is that we observe what goes on around us and we take on that data and we order it and we create patterns that we then recognize. And this is how people are able to recognize a threat, for instance. Not every single bear that you come across in the wild is going to go and try and eat a human being. But it happens enough times for you to be able to generalize and say bears in general in the wild are dangerous to you. And that will keep you alive. Not everybody that smokes will go and get lung cancer. But you observe the pattern that says to you that it is more likely to occur if you smoke. So as a result, you make the generalization that smoking causes cancer. And by avoiding that, you increase your chances of survival. So whilst it annoys a lot of people to generalize, often generalizations exist because of patterns. Well, in terms of patterns, one of the generalizations that people talk about is that men mature more slowly than women. Now, part of this may very well be because of biology. Women have a biological clock. And so if a woman wants to settle down and have children, she has to do so by a certain age. She can't be in her late 40s and decide, you know what, I'm ready now to get married and have a child. Whereas a man in his late 40s still can. As a result of that, a woman feels as though she has to act more quickly, and that requires a level of maturity. A man who can essentially procrastinate in terms of getting serious about life, he doesn't feel like he has those same restrictions. Well, typically speaking, therefore, to continue along the lines of generalizing, in the Western world, you will often see a lot of 18-year-old men, 19-year-old men, and they're still kind of immature. And they don't always know where their life's going. I've got nieces and nephews around that sort of age. I've got a little brother around that age, actually. And you can sort of see that there is a lack of an understanding of which way to go in life. So often what they'll do is they'll delay, and they might go to a university and study for the sake of studying. I'm going to go have a party, most of them think, to be honest with you. But a lot of them think, yeah, I'll go and get a degree. And they start, while they're at uni, to contemplate what it is that they want to do with life. And what essentially occurs is that by the time you leave university and you get started in life, you can reach your mid-30s and you are still striving towards a goal. You might not even be on the property ladder yet, especially in the UK, especially in cities like London, where the prices are astronomical. You're in your mid-30s, late 30s, and you're still striving towards that goal. And as a result of that, although life is difficult in that regard, your goal, the oasis in the desert that you can see on the horizon, is always ahead of you. And as a result of that, you know what to strive towards. You still say, right, that's my goal. That's what I need to do. And you're going to keep working hard. And you may feel like life's unfair. You may have a plan and you get thrown off course and then you have to redirect yourself. But ultimately, to be a success, you say, I've got to keep plugging away. And that's what's there for me. I can see it on the horizon. And I might get to that horizon and realize it was a mirage. And then I've got to continue going because I can see a new oasis on the horizon. And you keep moving forward. However, when you're a young athlete, things are a little bit different. From the age of childhood, Kell Brook had a dream and he knew where he wanted to go. And it would have been at a very young age that he realized that I'm very talented here. So on that path that you get on, typically speaking, we're generalizing, but typically speaking, at 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, where you start to plan the course of your life, Kell would have made those decisions at a much younger age. I want to be a world-class boxer. I want to be a world champion. And his parents are feeding that dream. They are watering the seed to make him realize that dream. Ultimately, he knows what he's here for. Whereas when you're typically in your 30s, you might not know where you want to be. Well, Kell Brook, by the time he's in his 30s, he's done. His path is over. So while you are still striving towards your goals, while you have still yet to meet your dreams, Kell Brook has achieved them. He's become a world champion. He's reached the pinnacle. And unlike you, whereby as you gain qualifications, then you start the world of work and you start to gain more experience and you become better at your job and your CV becomes beefed up, you are strengthening as you go along. Your earning power might increase because you have become better equipped at reaching the top of your industry. Kell is the reverse of that, like Benjamin Button. In your youth, you are in the prime of your physical and athletic capabilities. And yes, people do develop and mature at different rates, right? And before I hear people tell me Mike Tyson was very young, but Lennox Lewis was older when he reached his peak. Yeah, sure. But Father Time will still hack you down. Whether it happens when you're in your early 30s or whether you're 40, it makes no difference. The fact of the matter is, there is a finite period of time when you are at your athletic peak. And for Kell Brook, that period is now over. You still have a purpose as an individual trying to build a life for yourself, but he doesn't see that. According to his perception of the situation, his purpose has dissipated. And I was watching Adi Oladipo's channel the other day, and he was saying, well, when you consider a footballer, for example, he will go from being in the starting 11 to suddenly he's on the bench and he's not getting in the team quite as much. And then after that, he's in the reserves. And as a result, the transition towards retirement is more gradual in some regards. And it almost becomes a case of, okay, I've now known to accept it. Whereas with Kell Brook, he explains, he had a massive fight recently against Amir Khan. The stadium was looking aesthetically incredible. The decibels were superb. He came out to all of the lights. And that's exactly the thing. All of the lights were shining on this gladiator. He was a gladiator entering the Colosseum. There was no gradual transition towards the life that he would be living as a retired fighter. He went from being on a plane of superstars to saying it's over. And even though a lot of people will say Kell Brook's been washed for a very long time, he's still been in big fights. He's still been in big events. He fought arguably the pound for pound #1 fighter in the world in Terence Crawford. It doesn't get much bigger than that as a platform to perform on. So to suddenly transition to saying it's over, what do I do with myself? And when you start to question your purpose, what does it really equate to? Well, it's almost like a midlife crisis. You're observing your life and you're saying, my best years are behind me, and it feels as though my life has no meaning, or at least this is not where I wanted my life to be. Or I'm now questioning what my goals are in life. There aren't enough roles in the media to go around for every single fighter. Can I become a trainer? Yeah, sure, but what about me? That's putting someone else on a pedestal towards glory. What about my glory? What about what's driven me my whole life? And that's the position that Kell Brook is in right now. And you see, away from sport, you see a lot of people will engage in this supposed midlife crisis in a variety of ways. They might go and buy themselves a new car. They might go and get a hair transplant. I knew one particular guy, for instance, who started dating a younger woman. He was about 40, around that sort of age, and he started dating a woman in her early 20s. And I knew people that were very critical of this man. And they were judging him almost. How can he date a woman that's like 20 years younger than him or whatever? In his mind, he was saying, I need to prove that I've still got it, that I haven't lost my value as a man. Back in the day, I'd smile at a woman, she'd smile back. Now, I smile when people look away. They don't even know I exist. I'm invisible. And the fact of the matter is, I haven't got what I wanted in life. I don't have that stable relationship. So if I'm now struggling to find a woman to get me into that special relationship, now what am I going to do? So it's a panic in some regards, and you're fighting against the breaking of the dawn. You do not want your day to end, so to speak. And this is why it got to the point where Kell Brook says, I'm a bit lost. It's a little bit like I've died. He is mourning the existence of the man he's always known. Now, you don't have to think that way, of course. We know he's a special fighter. He's achieved things that many could only dream of. However, the fact of the matter is, in his mind, the special one, Special K, he's not there anymore. He's not capable of doing the things he used to be able to do, and he's no longer in the limelight. And the adrenaline you get from that ring walk alone, he cannot replicate it. And when a lot of people get into that situation, what do? They seek to replicate that feeling artificially, synthetically. And this is why he's turned to illegal substances, I would imagine. You don't just see it with Kell, you see it with a whole bunch of other fighters too. Ricky Hatton went off the rails. He lost to 2 pound for pound greats in Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. There's no shame in that. You yourself can be an all-time great fighter and still lose to 2 legends of the sport like that. It doesn't belittle you as a talent or as a fighter. He beat another guy who was on the pound for pound list and cost us you. So Ricky Hatton had a terrific career. And yet, because right before that mountaintop, just 2 steps away from it, he fell short. He suddenly felt that he could not be validated anymore by the public's love, even though they always loved him. But in his mind, I failed, and I'm no longer that warrior. Now what do I do with my life? What is my purpose? So he'd hit the booze hard. Then you look at other guys who mid-career can get into that sort of problem. Guys like Adrien Broner, the new Floyd Mayweather. He lost to Marcos Maidana. All of a sudden he starts to question himself and his existence, his purpose. Am I not meant to be the pound for pound #1 fighter in the world? Am I not meant to be the new Floyd Mayweather? This is a man who had such confidence in his ability and such a defined purpose in his own mind that he turned down a $40 million deal from Rock Nation. You remember that? That's how much he believed in his own destiny to become the #1 pound for pound fighter in the world and the #1 superstar of the sport, the new Floyd Mayweather. That's how much he believed in that notion. So when that crumbles, how do you replace that? So he starts drinking. And recently on a podcast with Sean Porter, he was saying how he used to wake up and the first thing he would do for breakfast is have a couple of shots of alcohol. And that's how far he went off the rail. And there's a photo of him getting arrested for DUI. Now, a lot of people, a lot of fighters will manage to find meaning in life in other areas. They will focus on their families, and that's something that Kell Brook needs to do. Others will focus on their faith. Others will say, I'm going to set myself new goals, whether it's the media or a business venture or training another human being. Whether it's, I'm going to continue training, but I'm going to train in a different way. I'm now going to bodybuild. Like Callum Johnson, for instance, he's bulked up massively. He's set new goals. And you have a lot of fighters like George Groves who will say, I don't miss the fight game. I'm happy to retire. I went off on my terms, so to speak, and I've set new goals and I don't miss it. But there are others where the pull is always bringing them back. There's that little whisper in the ear, that seductive whisper that the joys of fighting can bring. And that is what Kell Brook is battling against. And he slipped up. And all you can do is hope that he can find the grander meaning in life to be able to get back to realizing that the special one is not necessarily the guy that ring walks and get into the ring. It's the guy that his children look up to. It's the guy that his family love. And if he can find new meaning in life and he can get back on a healthy path, then I'm sure he can experience happiness and live with great pride for all the things he's done. But it's not an easy path. And that's why we see so many fighters fall off the bandwagon. Let me know what you think, ladies and gents. Please don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button, a right cross on the subscribe button, and an uppercut on the notifications button. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.